This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock, joined by John Brummett of the 200-year-old Arkansas Democrat-Gazette.
Well, not exactly, but I get your meaning.
Yes. We're going to get to that. I got a personal question for you first.
No, I don't like those.
I know you will, though. So I've been following your Facebook feed lately. You've been talking about Bruce Springsteen.
I have been. He's my man.
Really just kind of recalling a lot of things from your younger years.
Right.
You've been talking about cooking, but you're afraid to make some messes.
Right.
You've lost your socks in the dryer.
I do.
These are old fart things, John.
Right.
Are you geting worried?
Can you say that on your show?
I
old
can,
fart?
yeah. This is over the internet, so we can say things like that.
I'm inspired partly by, and nobody in Arkansas much cares about this, but Bruce Springsteen, who's been making original music and performing since the 70s, and we've watched him grow up in the stages of his life, and he's just going with it, and now he's doing this mellow homage to the Glenn Campbell, Jimmy Webb 70s of the new album, and I find myself accepting who I am in my station in life, and I'm just getting a little bit stuck in my ways and cranky. I've never been that way before, yeah, I mean, losing socks in the wash, in the dryer, and I'm getting all these pieces of advice about what old people do. You know, you bobby pin them or you clothes-pin them together, and then I love to cook, but I hate the mess, so let's run down to fast food and get something passed through a window.
If I could cue up the music, I would have Bruce Springsteen's Glory Days playing in the background.
Well, see, that's a big part of it. I mean, his music. Don't get me started on his music, but it's a narrative of a life, and I've had glory days, and they continue. Right here, look where I'm sitting with Mr. Roby Brock.
Right.
These are our glory days.
Our glory days. Mm-hmm. All right, I'm for it.
I appreciate you following me on the Facebook. That's an important part of modern journalism, is being on many platforms.
It's also pure entertainment as well.
That's what I try to do.
All right.
What's on your mind this week?
Well, I want to center on the Democrat Gazette, the Gazette, 200 years. What do you think it was like in those early days? We're going to be doing a lot of retro, it looks like, over the next 200 days, I guess.
Right.
Can you imagine what it must have been like
Can
for
I
William
imagine?
Woodruff to have
I could only
come up here and
remotely imagine, because this is that the Arkansas Gazette was founded in 1819 by William Woodruff, a newspaper apprentice. So this is the 200th year anniversary, but in 1991, it was purchased by Walter Hussman, the Democrat, who some would say absorbed it, and it still lives in part, and others would say it ended on that date. But this being the 200th year, Mr. Hussman is meeting his community and journalistic responsibility to celebrate it. And we're going to have pages from the past. We're going to have a big dinner. We're going to have all sorts of things. Now, your question, can I imagine? This William Woodruff, I never thought much about him until I read it yesterday. And that's one thing that commemorations can do. They can re-educate us or educate us anew. A young newspaper apprentice, not necessarily educated, but apprenticeship in the newspaper business. Not that he was uneducated, I'm just saying that was a day of apprenticeship. He said, here's where I can go. There's this new Arkansas territory. I'm gonna go over here and start the first newspaper west of the Mississippi. And I mean, wading up the swamps and the bottoms and there's boats and forming something in a semi-wild, if not three-quarters wild outpost called Arkansas Post, the short-term capital of this new territory. What a story.
Yeah.
What an adventurous
got
spirit.
printer paper back then.
Yeah, well, people had to be as adventurous as he to get it there.
Yeah.
And there's some of this thing I read yesterday, it was inconsistent, let us say, getting his supplies and his resources to publish. Initially publishing a weekly. It is the longest surviving business in Arkansas. I mean, from 1819, 17 years before we were a state, when we were just a territory, And you could say it still survives even today if you accept that the purchase was a merger.
Well, let's talk about that because you were around during the big newspaper wars.
I
I was
was.
too, but I was just kind of really inching into adult life at that time, out of college.
And you're still trying to get into
I
it.
am still
Yeah.
trying to find my way
Yeah.
through adulthood here. But why do you think the Democrat won the war with the Gazette? What's your perspective?
Boy, it's a tough subject.
I know it
I
is.
mean, because it's a tough subject for old Gazette hands, but I like jumped off the sinking ship with a year to go, and by the time at the end, I was writing contract columns for Mr. Hussman. It ended because the Pattersons, who owned the Gazette, found it necessary in the new market, or advisable in the new market, to sell. They sold to Gannett, and Gannett then proceeded to lose any sort of local franchise, being a chain, to sort of trivialize the paper in the minds of many. So that, on one hand, that's happening. On the other, it's not because he pays me every 2 weeks or the direct deposit, but this Hussman is some kind of businessman. Mm-hmm. You know, his costs were half what Gannett was spending here. He paid less. His people worked harder. They worked on improvised equipment that they kept running just by wiring it together. And in the end, and then advertising, he developed better relationships with, say, Dillard's than the Gazette did. And in the end, Gannett said, we're losing too much money and this guy's not going away. That's what happened. A local businessman with talent and sort of nerve and some guts managed
took some risks.
Took some risks. I mean, there had to be days when they said, it's over. I mean, we're going against the biggest newspaper chain in the country. So that's why. And then later, he didn't go to war, found himself at war in Northwest Arkansas with the Stevenses, who decided to take him on. How'd that turn out? Well, he's up there. But now, and you may be segueing to this, I don't know.
But it's okay.
Now, he's in this is this third fight of his life, which is the decline of the print newspaper industry nationwide. He is surviving in a more healthy way than most. Nearly all papers of this size are pitiful, and particularly if they're chain owned, as most of them are. He has survived more, partly by being one of the first to insist on online pay. And now he's going to take his last. He's older than I am. He's got to be late 60s.
We don't talk about age at a certain point, John.
Okay.
You're not there yet, but we're close.
Yeah, he's decided at this stage in life he's going to go to battle again, and he is going, because he could sell this thing and go away and live out in wherever that golf course is, Pebble Beach. Is that where that is? I mean, he could, but he's going to go to war again on two fronts. He's going to try to save the print product to the extent that he can, and in areas where it's no longer advisable to invest in the newsprint and the costs of distribution, he's buying millions of dollars worth of iPads, and he's going around the state to civic clubs saying, here, read it right here, and we'll show you how to do it. Nobody else in the country is doing that, and it's an exciting business story. Yeah, we'll see how.
We'll see how it
we'll
plays
see
out.
how it turns out.
I'm a little skeptical.
Well, of course you're skeptical, but I bet you were skeptical. People were skeptical that he was going to beat Gannett. You know,
right?
So we'll see. But his model is, let's draw in our print's distribution. It's very expensive. You know, the paper is expensive, the newsprint's expensive, the fuel's expensive, the trucks are expensive. Let's draw that in. Let's emphasize a manageable market in Central Arkansas, and then let's try to convert as much as we can to this digital age to maintain a presence in that. Nope, as he said in the paper, nobody else is following me on this. We're out here the only ones doing it, and it's sort of an exciting business thing to watch, particularly if you're in the middle of it.
Yeah,
as I sort
you're
of
in the middle of it.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, you guess.
I am.
I think you're in there like 3 days a week and fourth day online,
yeah.
So you kind of are in the middle of it.
And by
I can
the way,
read the letters to the editor, and I think that you are part of the business model, to be honest with you.
Well, It is a fact that with the decline in traditional newspaper advertising, print advertising, I mean, it's just plummeted precipitously. The paper has steadily said, okay, we're going to a reader-driven model. And your subscription is going up this much, and it's getting up there where it's costly. So a reader-driven model, no wood to knock,
can knock on plexiglass.
Knock on plexiglass. A reader-driven maybe put a premium on a columnist who has a following. I hope, that's the idea. Not that anybody's going to stop the paper if I'm not there, but I'd like to think somebody might. So it's all a very interesting business story, and these two things tie together. I'm rambling now, and I'm taking your questions.
You're okay.
The heritage of the Gazette as this institution, the oldest enterprise in the state, Pulitzer Prize rising to the historic occasion. I believe Hussman has both on his own, has a family obligation, because his family was in the newspaper business, to print. I also think he feels sort of a community obligation to the history of what he has bought. And I think we see it in the celebration that he's coordinating this year. And I think we see it in his trying to save this product. And newspapers may be outdated, but they can still be very, very important. Do you think the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post are important to this country? I think they are. I think the Gazette could conceivably remain relevant as a newspaper and digital enterprise into the future. And go Walter Hussman, I say. Good luck to you.
A little known fact, my grandmother worked at the Arkansas Democrat back in the day, and I used to go up there with her quite a bit into her office. She worked in the style and maybe fashion section at the time.
What's your name?
Vonnie Hewitt. And then she later did the society pages. So.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Do you know my first day in the newspaper industry? 6 a.m., I was 16 years old, 1969, hired as a part-time sports department employee in the dying Afternoon Democrat. They put out the paper between 6 and 8 in the mornings. They hired 3 or 4 local high school kids from local student papers to come in and help them write the headlines and get the paper out before we went to school. And then we'd cover games on basketball on Tuesday and Friday and Saturday, and football on Friday and Saturday. Great apprenticeship. For me, it started on the second floor of the Democrat, just a few feet from where the Voices page offices are now. That's how far my career has come. It's come up one flight of stairs, basically, with some detours along the way.
Well, it'll be interesting to watch this. Obviously, we are all pulling for some success for the Democrat Gazette.
Well, you say that as kind of a competitor. Right?
I do say that.
I mean, for advertising dollars and for readership, but there's a place for all of us. I think is what you're saying.
That is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a level of depth that they can provide that we can't provide with our current structure and resources. And
plus, you can get a scintillating Monday guest from their stable of columnists.
That's right.
If the one was available.
And some days it's good to just hear old stories like you shared today. Thank you
I'm
very
good for
much.
those, my man. Thank you.
Right. That's all for today's Talk Business and Politics. I'm Roby Brock. We'll see you next time.
Each day, the promise of our nation begins again. Arkansas and America, moving forward. I help make that promise a reality. It's not for everyone, but people everywhere depend on us.
Oh, I love you too, sweetie.
Trucking delivers, or everything stops. And that's what drives me.
I did.
You'll find us at the end of a lot of long country roads, covering over 60% of the great state of Arkansas. Our 17 electric distribution cooperatives are working day and night to provide reliable, affordable power to over 500,000 homes, farms, and businesses, just like yours. The Electric Cooperatives of Arkansas, your local energy partners.